what would you say was the first step in determining whether it's possible to add a biogas conditioning system to a wastewater treatment plant? Like I'm a municipality. What boxes do I have to tick before I start that?
Yeah, I think the first box is, do you create biogas, right? So if
Makes sense. Yeah. All right.
if you create biogas, if you have anaerobic digestion, most wastewater treatment plants will have the capability of adding some sort of biogas treatment unit to your system. And so that's a really simple answer, but I'd say that once you once you have biogas, you can be in that space. Really, the first step would be to sample that biogas and send it out for analysis, and just making sure that it falls within the general standard anaerobic digestion biogas statistics. It's a 60% methane, 40% CO2 type of gas with some other trace contaminants. And if you're there, the other component is your flow rate. So how much biogas are you really producing?
Yeah.
And that can inform you a little bit on what solutions might be available to you, what solutions might be on the table.
And what is that threshold? Like, how much biogas do you need to be producing to make it worth it for your community?
Yeah, so it's kind of nice because for our community, we have 100,000 people in it, and so that makes it really easy to kind of scale discussions, right? So if you're
totally.
a community of 20,000 or 50,000, or you might be able to scale off of us. So we're 100,000 people, and so our average flow rate currently that we see at the plant is 7 to 8 million gallons per day. And so that in turn produces 100 cubic feet per minute of biogas, and upwards of 100 to 150,000 cubic feet per day. Just kind of think about it like that. And so a lot of times these manufacturers of biogas treatment systems will have packages that treat certain flow rates, whether that's 50 cubic feet per minute, or 100 cubic feet per minute, or 200 cubic feet per minute. So they kind of, equipment manufacturers sometimes dictate that scale a little bit. But for us, we fell in that nice threshold of 100 cubic feet per minute. The system sizing worked out really nicely for us. So yeah, once you know your quality is good, looking at your flow rate and kind of how that lines up with equipment vendors is sometimes a good place to start.
Yeah. Right. How can you determine if you can convert your existing wastewater treatment plant to be suitable for RNG? Can you do that with any system, or will everyone have to contact some expert manufacturer to get special infrastructure or parts designed for them?
Generally, these biogas treatment systems are kind of modular and bolt-on type.
Okay.
So really, you're just diverting gas from your flare and sending it into these biogas treatment systems, which is, you can almost think of as a black box. They're doing something in their black box, whatever it is proprietarily. They're removing all these contaminants and treating it. But for the most part, it can bolt right into your existing plant without much trouble. There are some things to consider and small nuances, and without getting into too much detail, I was referring to a combined heat and power unit, right, that generates electricity and heat. If you decide to go down that route, you might have to think about how your hot water loop around your plant works and how to incorporate that system in. And if you end up going with a pipeline injection project, so you treat your RNG up to a quality where you can inject it into the pipeline, you may end up with some other kind of treatment units that you might need but it's not anything that would prohibit most wastewater plants.
Right. So on that note, how do you determine whether turning RNG, or whether making the RNG suitable for the pipeline is the route you want to take, or taking sort of your route and just putting it directly into your own vehicles and fleets?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think the drivers for us primarily were, one, do you have sufficient fleet demand to justify your own CNG system, right? So do you have enough consumption that would actually use up most of, or if not all of, your renewable natural gas? And so for us, We have a fuel master system that tracks all of our fuel consumption, allows us to quantify that consumption, and also be able to understand, do we have big spikes like weekly usage,
Right.
that's different from month to month. What was great was that our waste services group, which again is the trash, recycle, and compost collection group, was a very stable operation. People are throwing trash away pretty much the same way they do all year long, and with the exception of maybe compost being a little bit different, but their consumption pattern was very, very consistent. So that was a big check for us that said we have internally the ability to fuel one portion of our fleet. The other one was, do you have diesel trucks currently in your fleet or CNG trucks, and how do you maintain them? And for us, we had only diesel at the time when we were doing this project. So there's a couple of things that you want to consider there, right? Which is, well, now I have to convert my diesel trucks to compressed natural gas trucks. So what are the implications there? And on our end, we were right butting up to a replacement cycle of like 11 or 12 of our diesel trucks.
That's convenient.
11 or 12 of them. And that was out of 19 trucks, so a pretty big portion. So we pumped the brakes there and said, well, let's not replace all those with diesel just yet. Let's see if the CNG thing is something we should consider. So we used those diesel trucks for a little bit longer, and then made the decision to jump to CNG due to a couple of reasons. One, we got great grant funding from Regional Air Quality Council that covered a lot of that cost difference between a CNG and diesel truck. The other one was, because we were moving from diesel to CNG, we could then realize those cost benefits, right? So we're completely offsetting all of our diesel costs now with this free fuel we're generating pretty much from our wastewater plant. So that was a big cost factor. The last one I would say, especially for fleet utilities, right, is your fleet maintenance building set up to maintain CNG vehicles? So if you just have a CNG, or if you just have a fleet maintenance area that's built for diesel, a CNG building retrofit would probably be in mind, which is HVAC and ventilation, some code updates. So there's a cost with that. But for us, we had already considered CNG a long time ago, and so our facility was already built with the ability to maintain CNG. So that wasn't anything that really prohibited us from moving forward there.
Awesome.
And I think the last thing when you're talking about considering, pipeline injection versus direct is, on the wastewater plant side, you have to understand what is your natural gas utility's stance on pipeline injection.
Right.
So this is not something that's done everywhere, although it's becoming more common. And so that stance may differ from utility to utility. I think we're really fortunate here on the Front Range to have had the City of Boulder and South Platte Water Renewal Partners both move forward with pipeline injection projects, both get approval, and I believe this week Boulder is starting to inject into the pipeline. And so that is a great precedence in terms of being able to negotiate and make sure that the infrastructure will be in place for other utilities to follow a similar path. So that's definitely a big part of it.